So the five players I've never seen that I wish I had, a couple of them there really isn't even footage of. And so I'll start there at number five, and that's Satchel Paige. He was a pitcher predominantly in the Negro Leagues for most of his career. He did break into the majors at the very end of his very, very long career. He was a pitcher, pitched for the Miami Marlins, the original Miami Marlins way back in the day. And the reason I would want to see him play is because not only did he have these different pitches that they almost sound like something out of a comic book. Like his B-ball was the fastball, and then one of them was actually ruled illegal at one point because it was so hard for hitters to hit. But he also had this like huge charismatic personality that people would just pack the stadiums to see. So I think it would be so cool to go back in time into such a different era and watch one of the game's greats that probably a lot of people don't really know about in baseball, and that's Satchel Paige. Number four for me, Michael Jordan, of course. Growing up, I was not an MJ fan because I grew up in Michigan and we hated the Bulls. But especially now, like seeing the documentary come out and The Last Dance and all that, I do really regret never seeing him play in person. And I actually remember as a kid thinking that, like, man, I really wish I could go see him play. But in the back of my mind, I was like, but I hate him, you know? But I do think it would have been really, really cool to actually see him play in person and see some of those athletic feats and the way he just seemed to fly through the air. I think to see in person would have just been totally awesome. The third person for me is Jim Brown. I mean, one of the greatest running backs of all time, just with his unique style of running, I think would be so cool. I mean, that to me he's kind of the embodiment of football in that era. And that's another athlete who I actually did get a chance to meet. And I remember I was like shaking because he's such an icon. But definitely Jim Brown, I think would be, and I don't know, I think I just love running backs too. So I think to go back and see him play because the game was so different then would be really cool. Number two, great Bambino, Babe Ruth. I mean, who doesn't wish they could have seen him? And just a guy of his stature doing the things he did on the mound, at the plate, back in Yankee Stadium. I mean, a guy that has such lore and history and intrigue attached to him. I think to see him play in person would just be unbelievable. Plus everybody in their like trench coats and top hats and all that. How cool were the baseball games then? And then the number one person I actually wish I could watch, and this is probably someone people don't really know about, and that's Josh Gibson. He was an absolute star in the Negro Leagues. Died really young. I think he was like 35. But he was the Black Babe Ruth. And the home runs he could hit, I want to see them because I don't think I can believe them. Supposedly he like cleared the third tier at Yankee Stadium in an event there. So I just think to go back and watch a guy that was so young and so talented and maybe like didn't get the respect he deserved because of when he played would just be awesome. And it's crazy because I think he died like a week or a couple nights or something before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. So I've read a lot. Actually, I went to the Negro Leagues Museum in Kansas City, which is where I kind of learned about a lot of these players. And he sounds like he was just really like a once-in-a-generation talent that I think if you were able to see in person, you can maybe see just what all these stories were about that you hear about him, but maybe don't hear enough about because of him playing in the Negro Leagues.